Kindness Can, the podcast, with radio personality Jane Linley-Thomas and psychologist Paul Bushell. Because every act of kindness, no matter how big or small, can change lives. In this series, Jane and Paul hope to enrich your life by giving you practical tools on how to be kinder in your relationships with yourself, with those around you, at home, work, and in your community.
So I wanted to chat about something that I think is pretty relevant at this time of year. Kids leaving home. I recently was asked to go and chat at an end-of-year awards ceremony at school and couldn't help but feel the kind of the sadness in the room from the moms. It was like, it really felt like that chapter was closing.
Yeah.
And I cannot fathom my child packing a backpack and leaving home without me trailing in camo.
What do you think would come up for you, Jane?
I feel like almost like loss,
Yeah.
which is such a strange feeling because we know as parents our role is to guide and navigate and create people that are forward-thinking and independent and courageous and brave and kind so that they can go out into the world and make a go of it for themselves.
This is what we've been doing for 18 years.
Exactly. We want you to be independent, but come and sit here. Come and hug mommy. I mean, my boys 9 and 7 already have got to that stage where, I mean, the other day Rocco was getting an apple out the fridge and I went to go and open the bag for him. And as I leaned forward to open the bag of apples, he said, "I'm too hot for your kisses."
What?
He'd been running around the garden and was feeling flushed. And I was like, how can you be too hot for my kisses? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And they've almost, it feels overnight, gone from those cute little St. Bernards that would always just pander and love the attention of their mum to being like, whoa, stand back, lady.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Sure.
So it's loss.
Yeah, I think that's not, I would imagine, and certainly working with a lot of families around this time, I think that's probably a pretty good description of how a lot of families feel. There's this separation. There's a separation and something, even though you're not necessarily going anywhere and you'll still come back and visit and you'll still be around, this moment in our life, this chapter in our life is over. And there's a loss to that. You won't be living here anymore. You won't be a child anymore. And I think for a parent, it's a very big step and a very, very big moment. Of course, for the child as well, and maybe that's a separate conversation to have one day because there's a whole bunch of feelings of excitement and joy and independence and terror and fear and confusion that must come for them all on their own. But for parents specifically, it's this feeling of something significant has come to an end and my goodness, I hope I've done everything I can to prepare them for this.
And requires such bravery on the part of the parents.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if I think of me on my whole, like, I'm going to matric rave thing. I said to my mum the other day, like, how brave were you letting me get into a red, what is City Golf, the Chico, whatever that was back in the day, with peroxided hair. I'd eventually got my driver's license on the third go and off to Bleach I went.
Toot, toot.
Toot, toot, through. And I remember the trip. It was like packed with peeps, house music, and I drove through like a torrential storm.
Yeah.
How brave of my mum to have got to that place where she was like, go. She said it was the hardest day of her life. One of. She didn't let me know that though.
Yeah.
How brave.
Sure. It's since come out that apparently when my mum dropped me in Grahamstown and then drove back to Newcastle with my dad, about 6 hours into the trip, he said, if you don't stop crying, I'm actually dropping you on the side of the road. So I think for mums and dads, it must be just that loss, that separation. It's just such a hard moment. And it is a brave thing to trust your child that they will be okay and they will make good choices. But it's also a brave thing to trust yourself that actually I've done everything I can. And I think that's an important affirmation maybe to hold on to in that moment. That I have to trust myself that I've done the best that I could. And when you reflect back on the journey, made lots of mistakes. I didn't always get it right, but I did the best that I could. And you've got to kind of keep reminding yourself as you talk yourself through this moment.
And I think for my mum and my dad, my mum in particular, she had like the kind of, her skill set was there because I went to boarding school. But she said when I left home to go to boarding school, she couldn't walk past my bedroom, so she had to close the door because it was just too hard and too sore for her.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a very unfair cycle, this whole being a parent thing. It's like you invest everything, at all costs you try and navigate and be there, and then one day they're gone.
I suppose what jumps into my mind first in response to that is every emotion set comes 2 by 2. So the one is, of course, all the hard stuff, the loss, the separation, the unfairness of this moment, the fear. At the same time, how wonderful to watch your child step into their independence and into the next chapter of their life, and to watch them grow in new ways. And I suppose you've got to keep bringing that into the conversation with yourself as well, that this is a very beautiful moment for my child, and I'm going to celebrate it with them. And along those lines, something that I say to parents often along the journey of raising their kids is being conscious of, you have a picture of how you want your child to look. And that's a very beautiful, special thing that you started creating before they were even born. But learning how to kind of adjust that over time as you get to know your child, and not just holding on to it, that this is how it has to be. So if you're a parent out there negotiating your child getting ready to leave, there are going to be a lot of hard conversations right now about what they want to do next. And you're going to have some very specific ideas. And of course, your wisdom is important in this conversation. But don't be too held up by this is how it has to be for a good life for my child. Listen to them, hear them, get to understand why different things might be important to them and how that affects the choices that they're making now.
I mean, Mark and I always joke that when our kids eventually leave home one day, that we're going to get a camper van and travel to Africa Burn and go and do all the things that we haven't been able to do having 3 small children. But I think what Mark and I are also quite cognizant of is keeping our eye on each other.
Yeah.
You know, we always say to our kids, you know, Dad is my number one.
Yeah.
Mom is my number one. Because it's very important for them to know that we are a unified force. But in saying that, need to follow through that, yes, we have dinner every night around the table at 7 o'clock so that we keep our eyes on each other, because it's so easy to get so consumed in our children that we just become the people that made them.
Sure. And so this moment is as much as, I'm talking about experiences coming in sets of 2 by 2. This is also part of that actually this is a wonderful moment for us in our life as well. So we've had the wonderful journey of having children who rely on us for 18, 19 years every day.
When they never
And
stop,
now,
by the way. They never stop.
Yeah.
I'm 40 and I still phone my mom 3 times a day.
Of course, but it's changed and
Yes,
it's
it
shifted.
has.
So
Yes.
the kind of relationship
Yes.
that we're having gets to be something new.
Yeah.
And that also opens up some everyday time for us in our relationship, okay, or even us in our relationship with ourselves, to kind of go and explore stuff that we've been waiting to explore. And that's kind of fun and exciting too. I think something else that kind of, as we're having this conversation, that feels important for me to say is, don't be afraid to have some meaningful conversations with your children around this time as well. So send them off with some truths about what you really, really feel. It's easy to get lost in the practicalities of this moment, the choices, the packing, the finding of jobs, whatever it is next. But don't be afraid to, and it's a vulnerable thing to do, to sit down with your child and say, I want to tell you what I see when I look at you. And I want to tell you what this journey of 18 years of being your parents has been like for me, and what the highs and some of the hard moments have been. Maybe reminisce over some really funny things that they've done. But I think that's a very symbolic ritual or gesture to make at this moment. And I think that psychologically helps everyone process both sets of feelings.
There's something so special about like really articulating something like that. I mean, if I think about a car ride that Cooper and I, my oldest, took yesterday, he had a bad day at school. And I said, you know what I see when I see you? And he said, what? And I assumed that he saw or thought maybe I would say something a little bit derogatory because he hadn't kept up in class or whatever it was. I said, I see rainbows. And I could feel, while I was driving, I wasn't looking at him, but I said to him, boy, when I see you, I look at I feel like I see rainbows. And I could hear him listening to those words, and that kind of like, wow, my mum sees rainbows in me.
Yeah. So the thought leads to a feeling, which leads to a behavior. And so as your child gets ready to go on the next chapter of their life, as they start a new journey for themselves, take a moment to kind of manually insert certain reflections or thoughts into them and hear that feeling. I can hear his feeling in that moment, just like this like light, wonderful, growing feeling. Yeah. And hopefully that affects their behavior, sets a tone for the next chapter.
And I'm very much the kind of person that I would love to do. I love rituals.
Yeah.
So maybe a cute thing to do would be to gather a few special things around the house and make a time capsule and hide it in the garden.
Yeah.
Something that you can both do together that can unify, because it's also hard leaving home. As exciting as it is, it's flipping frightening.
Yeah. And so those, we call them transitional objects. Objects, when your child had a blankie.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think as adults, sometimes it can be nice to have a few transitional objects as well. So maybe finding something old or finding something new, and it doesn't have to be big or expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. But just something to hold on to as you move into this next chapter that reminds you of here. I think that's a wonderful suggestion.
Can it be a bottle of wine? Bottomless wine.
Can you imagine how much the majority of them out there would just love it?
Would love it.
I don't know how long it would last.
It wouldn't last long. But listen, we wish you well on your journey. May it be a child going into high school, may it be your youngest going to preschool, may it be the first day of senior primary, or maybe leaving home. We wish you well, and you got this.
Yeah, you've got this. That's a wonderful affirmation. Thanks for listening, everyone. To follow us on social media at KindnessCan, or if you want to send us some words, info@kindnesscan.co.za.
We are extremely passionate about going into different spaces and helping with nurturing kindness to self. So maybe if you're looking for a different avenue for your team build or your end of year party or a workshop at your school or corporate space, reach out. We'd love to be with you.
Chat soon, everyone.
You've been listening to Kindness Can, the podcast. Find out more at kindnesscan.co.za.